How are you?
Yes, I'm good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Right. Yesterday, what we did, was it useful for you?
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think what we need is because particularly in the managerial operational case study, fair
Mm-hmm.
amount of marks for the application of the technical models.
Right.
Unlike in the strategic case study is equal, but here I
Mm-hmm.
think 40 odd percent is for the technical
For the
model.
technical one.
So yeah,
Yes.
so we should know how to apply because we have to understand our company for this year. This case study is a listed company. So listed
Okay.
company means there is a bigger responsibility onus on the board of directors to
Mm-hmm.
manage the company in such a way that the
Mm-hmm.
public interest is cared for at every moment. So when I say
Right. Yeah.
public interest, it's not only the shareholders, it's a wider term what we call stakeholders.
Right.
Stakeholders are people who have a kind of an interest in the
Hmm.
strategic action plan of the company or strategy of the company.
Right.
What
Yeah.
is strategy? Strategy is the long-term plans of the company backed by resources. So
Mm-hmm.
who are
Right.
the stakeholders? So everyone almost interested in the company, the lenders, the employees, the shareholders is of course the main stakeholder, customers, suppliers, everyone
Government.
becomes, even in this case, the film actors,
Hmm.
the producers, everyone becomes a stakeholder.
Stakeholder.
But
Yeah.
we have to remember the board of directors themselves are
Hmm.
stakeholders because their
Right. Yeah.
interest is also there very much. When you are
Hmm. Hmm.
a director in a public listed company, if the company
Mm-hmm.
fails and if something happens, it's not only the company that collapses, your personal life also will collapse.
Right. Yeah.
No one is willing to give you another job, if particularly if you work in a public company and if the public company collapses or something happens. So you
Mm-hmm.
also become a stakeholder. So that is why we discussed yesterday about the corporate governance. The corporate governance is a kind of a system that is there to ensure that the companies are properly directed, properly controlled.
Control. Yes.
Properly directed and controlled. And for the purpose of directing the company, you must have competent people as the
Hmm.
directors.
Right.
So
Yeah.
remember yesterday we discussed about the non-executive director. The idea is that there should be a majority non-executive directors for the reason that otherwise the executive directors will not take too seriously the non-executive directors and they might just ignore them. So they become
Right.
passengers inside the board, but they can't contribute anything because the shareholder, the executive directors will take the control because they are in the majority. But the
Right.
moment you have the non-executive directors in majority, even if the executive directors all get together, still they need the support of one or two more non-executive directors to get through one of their board decisions.
Hmm. Yeah.
Right? So that's the reason. So because of that, the non-executive directors have a very big role to play in a company. And now I think in this case, I believe in one of the variants, it will be about the less number of non-executive directors and they might decide they want to increase the non-executive directors to a greater number.
Hmm.
Right?
Okay.
In that case, they might ask, what are the attributes that you should be looking when you are looking for non-executive directors? If they want to
Okay.
increase by two more people, the non-executive directors, what
Hmm.
attributes they should be looking? So there are a couple of attributes we should be looking on the non-executive directors. One thing
Hmm.
is their experience and the knowledge and the skill.
Okay.
They must be people who have a lot of experience, not necessarily in the film industry. Right? But
Right.
there should
Yeah.
be people with lot of experience, knowledge and skills.
Yes. Right.
They must be people of some integrity. When you take a person to the board, that person must be of a reputation. If he has a very bad reputation, say, for example, if we try to appoint our Stan as a non-executive director, your company reputation also will get stained.
Right.
the people must be of good reputation. And then the third and one of the most important thing is they should be having time available. Time.
Okay.
Right? So you can't become a non-executive director of 10 companies because surely you are not going to be able to contribute to any company in a good way because you are a non-executive director of 10 companies.
Right.
Ideally,
Yeah.
2 or 3 should be all right, should be manageable. So so I remember in one of the earlier papers, they gave a question giving so many people their profile and asking whom do you recommend to be the non-executive director. Now, we CIMA accountants, we always have a good advantage because we are considered to be people of integrity. We are covered by the
Right.
code of ethics. We do have
Right.
that relevant experience and knowledge of financials, which is a very important thing, at least for one member of the audit committee. Here we
Right.
saw none of the non-executive directors have any financial background. So if they think of forming an audit committee, they will have to have one, at least a CIMA or similar professionally qualified financial person in the company. And also the non-executive director should be from diversified field. I mean, you should
Okay.
not have all accountants as non-executive directors. You must have a
Okay.
different kind of disciplines like HR, IT, whatever. So they can, they bring lot of diversity into the board. Otherwise, if all the
Right.
accountants are there, they'll be all talking about the IFRSs, nothing more than that. So marketing people. So here we saw in the non-executive directors, what we saw was there was a fair amount of diversity. There was
Right.
a lawyer, there was a kind of a film person, something like that. But finance, they lack.
Yeah.
And you remember there are 3 main committees in the corporate governance in the UK model. One is the audit committee. Second one is the nomination committee. Third one is the remuneration committee.
Okay.
So here the examiner is silent at the moment in the pre-scene about any of these committees. So they might say to enhance the corporate governance, we need to form these committees. Now these
Okay.
committees are appointed by the board of directors. So remember they are not appointed by the shareholders. Shareholders appoint all the directors, but the committees are appointed by the board of directors to help them in their task. So one of the committees, the big committee, the audit committee. Audit committee
Okay.
basically is looking after financial statements preparation, internal audit, internal controls. If there is no risk management committee, they will look after the risk management also. So they have a big role to play, even including what we call whistleblowing. You remember what
Okay.
is
Yeah.
whistleblowing? What is whistleblowing?
Whistleblowing basically if there's if there's anything wrong going in the organization, you're supposed to report it.
Yeah. Basically, yeah, you can, because now if you find your boss doing something wrong, if you go and report it to him, he might sack you. In order
Right.
to give you the protection, right, where you are given the protection to report of any irregularity, anything happening, particularly in the film industry, there can be many things happening,
Many things
like
happen.
what we
Yeah.
saw, abusing this young actresses, all that kind of a thing. So in that kind of a thing, a whistleblowing facility will facilitate, because the employee will be legally protected by going to that particular committee and making his or her grievance or whatever it is.
Right. Yeah.
So for that purpose, the audit committee is generally given the empowered authority to be the whistleblower, the blowing resolution facility.
Right.
They will once say for example, if you come across something that is not happening, you believe that your immediate boss is up to some fraud or something like that, or anything like that, what you do is you just go and report to the audit committee chairman. And when you report to the chairman of the audit committee, he will take up the matter with the board of directors. He will pass it down to the lower level and they will do the needful.
Okay.
So you are protected, right? You are protected.
Right.
So no one can take action against you for doing the right thing. That's the purpose of the whistleblowing. Then
Right.
the next committee we discussed is the remuneration committee. So audit committee normally all non-executive directors.
Okay.
Right? All non-executive directors, generally the minimum should be 3. If you can have 3 people, one should be with recent relevant financial experience and knowledge, and they meet, they will discuss things, and at the annual report they have to give a report on their own, what they have done during the year, kind of a thing.
Right. Okay.
The next committee is what we call the remuneration committee. Now, what is a remuneration committee? That is to decide the executive director's remuneration at the time of appointment, at the time of, after 1 year, the increments or whatever, to decide the executive director's remuneration.
Right. Okay.
Before the corporate governance came, what happened was so many people are in the board as executive director. So when Veena's salary for the 2017 is decided, Veena will not participate, but all the others will participate and say, yes, Veena should get so much, right? So if for example, if I object saying that Veena has not done some work and Veena is not qualified for the kind of a remuneration, then what will happen is when my remuneration is decided, I will not be participating, Veena will participate, and Veena will say, she will block my one also.
Okay.
So the idea was basically you look after me, I will look after you, and the directors were enjoying some fantastic salary packages all over.
Okay.
And the shareholders were not getting any dividends. Some of the employees were not getting proper bonuses, but the directors were having a fantastic time with the shareholders' money, and they were getting big pensions, provident, the perks and all that kind of a thing. So it came to a need to say that the directors' remuneration should not be decided by themselves. So for that purpose, the tool or the vehicle that they used was this remuneration committee. They are all non-executive directors, again maybe 3 people, minimum 3 people. They will sit and decide at the end of the period what should be Veena's 2017 salary. What should be Kumar's 2017 remuneration. They will of course broadly set the guidelines saying that, at the end of the year, looking at the inflation, if the inflation is 6%, we will increase all the salaries by 6%, but they will have a KPI for Kumar, they will have a KPI for Veena, and then look at the KPI, how Veena has performed, how Kumar has performed, and they might say, okay, Veena has done better, and let's give another 3% extra. Kumar has not done, we are not going to give it. So because of that, the non-executive directors get into a committee, remuneration committee, and they decide the salary of the executive director.
Okay.
Remember, executive director's package will include the normal basic remuneration, monthly remuneration, plus whatever, plus a significant amount by way of a performance bonus.
Okay.
Performance bonus. That is, if they work well and if they are performed, they might get a portion of that one. So that part also will be decided by that remuneration committee. Now, what about non-executive directors? Non-executive directors, remember, they are not entitled for any performance-based bonuses.
Right.
Because they are not really inside the company contributing towards performance directly. Because if they also get into the performance bonus, they are not independent enough to decide on the executive directors. So because of that, they are not entitled for any performance-based bonuses or anything like that. They are generally remunerated by way of the committee meetings, the board meetings, attendance.
Okay.
So for example, they might say for one board meeting, $1,000, right? So if I'm an non-executive, if I have attended 4 board meetings, I will get $4,000. That's it. Very standard. And if I'm sitting in the audit committee, they might give you another $500. for each committee meeting or whatever it is.
Hmm.
So their things are not decided by the audit, the remuneration committee. The executive director things are decided by the remuneration committee.
Right.
Then the next committee, the main committee is what we call the nomination committee.
Okay.
Committee. Now, as I said, all the directors, whether executive or non-executive, they are appointed by the shareholders. But some person will have to make a recommendation. Now, for example, Veena is the finance manager. Your finance director is about to retire, right? And they have to find a successor. So, the nomination committee will recommend saying Veena to be the successor, to be the finance director of the company once the present finance director retires.
Right.
That is what they do. Sometimes they might say this director has not performed any well. They will recommend the removal of the director.
Okay.
Recommend the removal. They can't remove, but they will recommend. They will recommend the appointment of a director. So that's what they do to the nomination committee. This is one committee where you will have even the executive directors sitting on the committee. Audit committee,
Okay.
and remuneration committee, no executive directors will sit. But nomination committee is one committee. The executive directors can sit in the committee, but the majority should be non-executive directors. In all committees, the majority should be non-executive, but they can put some of the executive directors into the nomination committee. The reason behind that is it is the executive directors who knows about Veena, right? Because the non-executive directors are outsiders. They don't know what is Veena's temperament, anything like that. For them, they can't make a recommendation who should be the person. But the executive director, they know what Veena is capable, whether she can succeed the finance director, and because of that, there are at least one or two people in the non-executive committee, in the nomination committee as members. So that's one thing we need to know. I think in this company we have a separate CEO and a separate chairman, which is a good thing, right? The idea was that again, no one should dominate. Therefore, you must have a separate CEO and you must have a separate chairman. Chairman heads the board. CEO heads the company performance and the strategy.
Right.
So that's basically on the corporate governance. I think we have done enough on that one. The next thing, one of the terms, you remember we were discussing about acquisitions. In acquisition, there is something called a due diligence. Due diligence. Now, before you take over another company, you must do a very, very careful analysis of that company. It's like getting married to your husband or some person getting married to a girl. Before you get into the marriage, you must check all the, their life, their style, whatever it may be. After getting married, it will be too late for you to say, oh, I didn't know. Right? So because of that, before you take over a company, you must get what we call an independent analysis, independent study done, and that is what we call the due diligence.
Right.
Because sometimes the financial statements may not be properly prepared, and you might go and take over the company and you might find that, oh wow, there are so many liabilities not included. So before anything, before going for any strategic decisions like acquisition or entering into a contract on a long-term basis, so in the film industry, you might enter into a long-term basis with another company to do a film on a joint venture basis. In that case, you must get a due diligence done. So that is the responsibility of the board of directors to take reasonable care before entering into any transaction with another party, such as takeover. This is a very important word you can use whenever there is some kind of a takeover being suggested. Try to emphasize on these kind of words. These are the words that carries you the technical marks. Just say a proper due diligence should be done. That's enough. That is going to carry you that extra 1 or 2 marks. You don't need to go and define what is due diligence unless there's a question asking what is due diligence.
Right.
So another term which I want you to talk is what we call fiduciary responsibility. Right? The board of directors in a company, they are entrusted with the shareholders' money, and they should work in such a way to promote the success of the company for the benefit of the shareholders. This is what we simply call maximization of shareholder wealth. But we see in reality, this is not what is happening. Most of the directors work towards their benefits. And that is what we call the agency principle. Agency principle is where the board of directors first work for their benefits before they look after the principal. But the idea of the board of directors is to work in benefit of the shareholders, and this is what is generally called the fiduciary responsibility. So, whenever your board is making decisions, so you being somewhat advising the board on many matters, not really in the strategic case, in the managerial case study, but still for all, there's 15% mark, they might ask you something about a particular decision being made, and in that case, you must consider the long-term consequences and short-term consequences. So I'm coming to this in another question in a moment, in a mock. Whenever we make a decision, we have to look at, okay, if we take a decision like this, what are the long-term consequences? What are the short-term consequences?
Okay.
We must think about our ethics and company reputation. That is why in the earlier case, we said Stan must be removed and all contracts must be terminated. Because it was hitting our company reputation so much. It was hurting us so much. Profitability wise, it may be a foolish thing to remove Stan because Stan is very cheap and we can do on. But looking from the company's long-term reputation from an ethical point of view, we have to sacrifice the short-term cost savings for the long-term gains.
Right. Yeah.
So whenever this is what we call business skills in a way. Whenever we make decisions, we must be very, very focused to see the company's reputation, company's ethical standards, company's long-term sustainability is protected even at the expenditure of losing something in the short term. Then we have the corporate social responsibility. What is corporate social responsibility? It is all about, today we know no business will ever survive unless there is a society. It's the society that brings a business up or down, right? So people in the film industry, the society is the people who are going to watch the film, right? So if you don't, because of them only you can survive. So that means there's a responsibility on the other hand on the part of you to give something to the society. And that is what we call CSR. So CSR is just not only the shareholders, but going beyond that and looking at the other stakeholders, your own community, right? Now I have seen a lot of Sri Lankan films. When they do a film, they say 10% of the proceeds, they will give it to Cancer Society or kidney something, or maybe some, natural disaster, some kind of a thing. So that's what we call corporate social responsibility. Now in this case study, we did not see anything like that coming up in any of the things. Right? Okay. So probably you remember we were doing a question where there was some kind of a problem of this earlier question, this DC3 saying after that press article saying that the people may not watch it's not a success and all that kind of a thing. Maybe a way to pull the motivation through would have been to a good CSR project.
Right.
If you can, I mean, I forgot about it, but I mean, you can think about it. If you have suggested something like to give 10% of the the film revenue or 5% of the film revenue, or not necessarily want to mention a certain component of the film revenue to the cancer society or to cure cancer program or something like that, people will go not for the sake of the film, but for the sake of the cancer patients.
Right.
So that's another way to motivate a film. I mean, not only a bad film, even a good film, you can do that kind of a thing. That is going to enhance your social profile, social reputation of your company to a great extent. So that is why CSR is done by most of the companies. It's not really, not that because they love to do it. Some people, they do it out of love. But by doing a CSR project, your company's reputation goes up very heavy.
Right.
I remember when my daughter was sick and, when we were going through difficulty, my son was working in the Standard Chartered Bank in Colombo, and they organized a walk to raise funds for my daughter, right?
Okay.
And they just went, about 5 kilometers in the main city, carrying some boats saying, help Dinusha something. But later on, I realized there is little bit of money. There is, substantial amount of money. But later on, I realized, later on, the bank management told me, by doing that project, their image in the society was very well enhanced. Everyone started talking about this particular bank trying to help the employee's sister, who is not even an employee, in a kind of a scenario. So it brought a goodwill to them as much as some money to me. So that way, these are the things that we should be looking in terms of strategy, in terms of suggestion. These are very innovative things that is happening in the world, which we must be aware.
Right.
Next one, I want to look at is the Mendelow's matrix. You remember there are 4 categories of people we find in an organization: low power, low interest people; low power, high interest people; high power, low interest people; high power, high interest people. So
Right.
sometimes it may be good for us to identify in a particular scenario through the Mendelow's analysis who are the people. Now, if you look at that earlier case that we were looking at, Stan, Stan was probably a man with, I don't think he had so much of power in the whole thing, but he would have been a person with high interest.
High interest.
Yeah. Low power, high interest. I don't think he had so much of ability to influence with his bad reputation. So you have to keep them informed. You have to tell, very sorry, Stan, we can't keep you because your reputation is bad. So because of that, something like that. But if it's a very prominent actor, he may be a high power, high interest.
Okay.
So that kind of a people, we have to decide our strategy based on them. It is acceptable to them. You want to hire the number 1 in the film industry, and you want to bring him into a particular film, right? And he might ask certain demands. He might say, I want a special flight to be chartered, whatever. And that kind of a scenario, you must be able to, you have to work on a strategy that is acceptable to him. Now, for example, in our company, I think the CEO is definitely a high power, high interest person. The board of directors will be high power, high interest person, because they are the people who can have an ability to influence the company. Right? The low power, low interest may be this the smaller version of the crew, the people who just play side roles and all that. You don't need to worry too much about them because you can make a minimal effort. So like that, we have to look at all the time the people. So there are many stakeholders in a company. The controlling stakeholders, shareholder wealth and profitability. Right? The controlling shareholders. But we did not see in this company any controlling shareholder. Being a listed company, shares may be scattered all over. They did not mention about a particular shareholder holding big shares or whatever. So we may not have a controlling shareholder.
Right.
So if there are any controlling shareholders, if in the unseen, if he says so and so is a controlling shareholder, or he holds a certain amount of shares, and he has some, then he will fall into high power, high interest category. And what they are interested in the shareholder wealth and profitability. Remember, the shareholders gets returned in two ways. One, the dividends. The other one is the capital growth, the share price increases. Right? The non-controlling shareholders, most likely in this case, almost all the shareholders may be non-controlling. In that case, they will be interested in dividends and capital growth.
Right.
So being a listed company, you must have a very consistent dividend policy. Dividend policy, something predictable. The people who have invested in the company should be able to predict next year this company will pay a kind of a dividend which I can, so they can plan their financial planning, the shareholders. Right? If it's an unlisted company, the people, because then it's a kind of a company, it's a kind of family company, then you don't need to have a predictable kind of a thing, because you can decide with the family what kind of a dividend should be paid. But in a company like Maintain, the dividend plan must be somewhat anticipated, predicted, and so that's the way the dividend should be paid in a company like Maintain. The business society, unlike the ladies, they don't like surprises. They want everything come up in a planned way, not too many surprises. If you remember this company, now I just want to quickly get into this Maintain. So they have paid a dividend. If you look at for the year this year, that is 31st December 2016, they have a profit after tax of 232 million. 232 million. Remember, this company, all figures are millions. Huh? So it's a big company. 232 million they had it. The retained earnings at the beginning of the year was 297. So 297 plus 232 is 529, but the closing retained earnings are 400. So that means they have paid a dividend of 129 million. So that's something which you note down. They have paid a dividend during the year 2016 of 129 million. So next year when they pay a dividend, either it should be a very consistent 129 million. So the people know that every year they get per share so much of dividend, or they must pay a percentage increase. Okay, 129, next year 141 or something like that. A very consistent dividend policy. Something with that. But of course, to do that, they must have consistent profits also. Slightly it can go up and down, it's all right. But it can't come down very drastically, then you can't maintain a consistent dividend. So last years, profits are 305, 232, fairly a big drop there is 73 million drop. So you have to be careful of their dividend policy also. So that's something which you must know about the dividend policy. So here we have lot of consultants employed. The consultants, I mean the actors and those people. They are very interested in their career. They are very interested in their remuneration. They are very interested in the safety and also satisfaction. Film industry is a very industry where people will want certain actors, even if you pay millions of dollars, they are not prepared to act in certain roles. So because they have certain principles, they don't want to get away from kind of a thing. So you have to be mindful of their needs. Their need. Then we have lenders who have given us loans. They are interested in the repayment on the due date. So your cash flows, cash forecast can become very important. Being a middle level manager, one thing will be the cash flow always for the medium term. So they might give you a cash flow. They might find certain excesses. You might find certain deficits. So you might want to know how best we can finance. So yesterday we discussed something. We can increase the non-controlling part to a great extent and get more money. But we have to remember we should not go beyond 50%, because the moment we go beyond 50%, we are not the controlling entity.
Yeah.
External consultants, here we remember we can have our own producers. We also have our outside producers. So outside producers, they come and work with Maintain to produce films. So there they will be interested in the long-term relationships and good kind of rates for them. Customers, who are our customers? Our customers are not really the film viewer. Our customers are mostly the cinemas in which the film will be screened. That's our customer, right? Because the film viewer is the ultimate customer for the cinema. For us, the customer will be mostly the cinema.
Cinema chain.
Yeah. Of course, DVDs, it will be the ultimate buyer. But most of the time, the customer will be our the cinema. So cinemas, they will look for value for money. They want to see, because they are going to put their 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 8 weeks or whatever, whether they will get full house shows or whatever it may be. They want to ensure the delivery time. So that's why it's very important. Ultimate customer satisfaction, good prices, good service, that kind of a thing we need it. Now, what about the organizational structure for a company like this? In our E2, P2, we talk too much about the organizational structure. What could be the organizational structure for a company like this? You remember in this company, the organizational structure was something like they did not give us an organizational structure. What do you think should be the organizational structure? I believe the organizational structure should be, because these are all project oriented. Every film is a project, and therefore the ideal organizational structure should be a matrix structure.
A what?
Matrix structure.
A matrix structure.
Yeah. That is because for project oriented organizations, the structure should be a matrix structure. What is a matrix structure? You have your finance division, you have your production division, you have your distribution division, whatever it may be. But for the film, for the particular film, they will work as a project. They will take the support of the finance, they will take the support of the production, they will take the support of the human resources, and it will work on a project basis. So you will have a kind of a contact person, or rather key person, who will be maybe the director or the producer, who will work with all the other functions to get the resources whenever that is necessary.
Right. Yeah.
One of the difficulties in a matrix structure, if you are working in a matrix structure in a company, now you being in the finance division, the film 1 week in Moscow producer also will come and say, Veena, I need your support to do a report. The summer night producer also will come and say, I need a report. DC3 reporter producer also will come and say, Veena, I need. Now you are going to work for too many bosses, and also your finance director. Your finance director. You have to take instructions from the finance director as well as instructions from all these project directors or the project owners. Now that's a very confusing authority, because that can create a lot of complex tension, stress to the employees. But from the project's point of view, it will be a very, very easy thing, because anyone who wants to get something done from the finance, they don't need to talk to Veena. They only have to speak to that particular project manager of the film, saying that the finance has not paid, and that person will coordinate and will tell Veena, the payment has not gone, please make the payment. Other project director will call and say, Veena, there is a double payment, please check it. Other producer will come and call and say, don't pay. So you will be under a lot of stress in a thing. But for the outsider, it's a very easy way to work through the company, because there is one link in the whole setup with whom they can work.
Okay.
So ideally, I think the structure should be a kind of a matrix structure. Government will be very much interested in the film industry very particularly, because it's a source of revenue for the government. It's a kind of an entertainment for people. With the entertainment, there is a lot of revenue for the government in form of taxes, and also it can have an impact upon the culture of the country. There can be many historical films of the country that have been developed, or maybe about something about the future technologies or future advancement, future sciences that can come up. So there can be, the government will be a very, very key stakeholder who will be interested.
Right.
One of the factors always we have to look at is pressure groups. When you do a film, you can have lot of people, who are against the film for many reasons. They might say it is going to disgrace a particular religion, a particular profession, or it is attacking some particular person, maybe a particular country's beliefs or whatever. So there can be a lot of pressure groups that is coming up, even on the sort of things like animals. Now, for example, the India is very, very sensitive for this cow slaughtering, that kind of thing. So we have to be very, very, there can be a lot of pressure groups coming up saying, don't let this film come into this country. I've seen some of the Christian pressure groups sometimes getting together and, getting some public petition signed saying that this film should never be allowed to screen, because it is totally distorting the Bible or gospel or whatever it may be. Right? So we have to be, these are the kind of questions you might get in that kind of a scenario. You will be under a lot of pressure, millions of signatures coming up on the social network or something like that, and saying this film should never be allowed to be screened in Sri Lanka or in India or whatever it may be. And the people who have produced the film, thinking that the market of Sri Lanka is good, thinking the market of India is good, might find things not working in their favor.
Right.
So you have to be very, very careful on that kind of. Just give me a second, Veena.
Yeah, sure.
Today my granddaughter's birthday, they are in Bangladesh, so they want to cut the cake. So just. Right, sorry. Yeah. So basically, so I just put up a couple of the unions. You remember that these people are kind of people, the actors, the producers. They are got into certain what they call guilds. Guilds is the name for the unions. They are highly unionized. So if you try to take a person outside any of these guilds, you might, the people in the guild may protest, and they can create a kind of influence. So it's always better to go with the people in the guild. So they have their own protection. They have their own minimum kind of fees guaranteed and insurance kind of a thing. This is another area which I want you to think about, the insurance. This crew, they go and do a lot of very dangerous acts. Yesterday I was listening to one of the Sri Lankan actresses saying that, how she has taken to the deep ocean for a film, and suddenly the boat turtle turned and then how she was in the deep ocean, you know, kind of a thing. So they face very dangerous kind of situation. So to protect them, I think one way is to get insurance.
Insurance. Yeah.
Insurance. But insurance alone is not a very strong thing because it's just money. You can't value the human life in terms of money. So you have to see that they give the maximum protection. So I was thinking about this case because, you know, there's some of these uh, the acts that what they do, even though in the film we enjoy it, they go through a lot of risk in going through that kind of a thing. Lot of space. That lady was telling that later on she has told she cannot do that song in that middle of the ocean once again. But anyway, finally the producer has persuaded her to do it. It has done, and then they showed it. It was very successful. But the stress that they go through is lot. Right. So, one thing is I just put up something, identify your stakeholders, identify their interests. The interest can be economic, social, or national focus. So in this film, there can be certain people like actors, they will be interested in the economic part of it. Certain people, they will be interested in the social part of it. Certain people, it will be more of a national thing. So we have to identify the issue very clearly and see what is going. Power and influence on a strategic decision. Right? And also how the varying interests can be reconciled. Now this is a very tough one, but this is what our skills can come up. Different forces coming up, how we can get, right? How we can get on a scenario like this. One thing, don't try to describe or draw the Mendel's matrix and say, you know, there are 4 categories, all that. This is not what the examiner wants. She hates it. She wants the application of the Mendel's matrix to the particular scenario. So don't over try to explain. Yesterday I saw one of the students trying to explain what is labor efficiency in another case. But that's not what is required. Right? So you must be very, very careful not to do too many things on that kind of a thing. Then, the Porter's 5 forces. You remember the Porter's 5 forces, right?
Yes.
The threat of new entrants. Now, you in the film industry, there will be lot of similar kind of films coming up. You can't stop it. Film industry is a kind of industry that is open all the time, and therefore there will be many threat of new entrants. Right? Then threat of substitute of products or services. So films again, there can be kind of copy kind of scenarios happening all the time. So you have to be bargaining power of customers. Now film industry, there is so much of bargaining power. After producing the film, the customers may say, we don't want this film, kind of a thing. Bargaining power suppliers. Who are your suppliers? Your suppliers are mainly the cast. They too will have a fairly big power, particularly when the industry is booming. When the industry is booming, because they have many things. So you remember in somewhere in the unseen, in the pre-scene, they said that they have lot of kind of the film industry is doing very well in that country. So that means the industry is booming. But there are certain times the industry is not doing very well. Actors, actresses, no film for last 1 year, kind of a thing. In that case, their bargaining power becomes very low. Competition, I think it's a very, very competitive field. So the way to go forward is to have that differentiation, to do something what the others cannot do, or to do something which is sort of a different scenario. It's good to do a kind of a pest analysis in a scenario to find out the best thing, the political, economic, social, technology, and to see what kind of things are there. And also the strategic important because there can be something which is very highly urgent, but strategic important will be very low. There can be something which is very highly urgent, like we want to show the film on a particular day, and it has to be done because it's strategically, it's very important that we show it. So it's a high situation. Now that kind of a situation should take your priority. Always we have to look at in the film industry, the changes, the drivers of changes. There can be changes in the economic cycle. People will not be in a mood to go for a film when the economy is down, when they don't have enough money to look after their basic needs. People are not going to go for films, etc. We have to be very, very mindful, particularly when you are doing a film, new laws or regulations. Then new competitor entrants. There can be always, you have to think your competitor, he can become a big one because you remember Mentine is the largest film producer in Europe. But if two small people, not two small people, two medium people get together, if they merge, they might become the largest. You know, let's assume we have a 30% market. If there are two people with 20-20, if they merge 40%, they become the largest. So we have to be well aware of our strategies, how to counter that kind of a thing. Imagine two companies, company C and D, with 20-20, they are thinking of a merger. Now your boss might come and ask, hey, we are 30% in the market. If these two people get together, they are going to be 20 and 20. They are going to be 20 and 20 means 40. So what can we do in this scenario? What can we do? If we just sit and wait, they become the 40. We are not going to be the number one. So one of the strategies that I can think of is basically without allowing that merger to happen, we must try and see whether we can merge with one of those people. Isn't it?
Yeah. Yes.
We must try and see whether we can merge with one of those people rather than allowing the 20 and 20 to go. Why don't we take a 20 and make 50 and 20?
20. Yeah.
So for that, of course, we need the money and all that. So we have to get all those facts. So these are the ideas that should come from you in a scenario like this. Then we saw the processes, technologies changing in the film industry very sharply. We should be looking at that one. And also we should be looking, as I said, to move into the television industry because the television industry is booming very heavily in most of the country. And maybe this downloading of films is another area. Changes in communication media such as web-based. This is another very important area for you and me, right? Today, it's almost the web that is working, downloading films. People want to watch the film at home, in their bedroom or whatever it may be. So a lot of things are happening. So I sense a question of a development of a website. Development of a website. They might want to develop a website. They might ask you what are the ingredients that need to be done and how to do it and that kind of a thing. I sense a kind of a question on that area in one other way. That is the way the films are being watched now in most of the homes nowadays. So changes in customer expectations. Yes, it can come up in many ways. So these are some other things you need to get through. Now, this company is already into the foreign markets. They are producing films to the global market. So surely they are already there, but they are still there may be certain areas in particular countries. For example, things like areas like these new emerging countries like Bangladesh, Vietnam. So we have to find, they might put up a proposal saying there is a situation where they can go into one of those countries. So we have to find out what are the advantages. So one advantage is, of course, obviously the higher revenue and higher profit. Right? Then life cycle extension. The film life cycle could get extended.
Yes.
Could get extended because you can show it in another area. Earlier, otherwise the film will just finish up in Europe or someplace. But now you can get it because there's some of these countries like Bangladesh, they have a very heavy population and they can do it. Right? So seasonality, tax concessions. Now certain countries they offer tax concessions. You might be able to get into that one.
Right.
So these are some other things, but of course, once the film goes out of your hand, it can lose your control. There may be political risk, that kind of a thing also we need to look at. You have to excuse me, my granddaughter is on the other side saying, faster, faster, we need to start the cake is melting.
Okay, yeah.
Right. So anyway, how is your program, say today we are on Monday, no, today?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, say, how are you on Wednesday, Thursday? I can put up Thursday, I can put it up if you want.
Yeah, that's fine. Any day is fine with me as well. Then.
Yeah, shall we make it Thursday 12 noon? Thursday, Friday?
Yeah, Thursday and Friday is fine with me, yeah.
We'll keep this for the moment, but we can do it. So we will keep Thursday and Friday for the moment.
Right, no problem.
Okay, right, yeah. Okay, Veena, I'll see you on Thursday. Same time.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, take care, bye.
Yeah, okay, take care, bye-bye.
Bye. Wait. Here, wait, I'll come on the other one, nah? I need to. Yeah, soon, I'm coming now. Okay.